If you're thinking about one-on-one clients, you have your one-on-one clients, but you can only have so many of them, right?
If you don't feel ready, that's okay. Because if you do feel ready, chances are you probably should have done that already.
If you don't have that passion and that energy that will sustain you through the hard times, like you're gonna struggle to make it succeed. You're gonna struggle to keep going.
We are so excited that you are here watching this or listening to it, depending on which platform you're seeing this or hearing this. We have a really, really valuable and completely unscripted, which is quite frankly, all of our podcasts are unscripted, conversation today about group coaching. So many coaches aspire to do group coaching and think that that's like the pinnacle of their business is how do I get to group coaching? And there's a lot of benefit and value around that, but it might not actually be the right thing for you right now. And so we're just going to talk about our own experiences. Daniel is actually quite an expert in group coaching, which he will share with you a little bit his experience and the training that he does with other coaches. And this is just going to be a fantastic conversation that we want you to leave hearing this with a better and clearer idea of how group coaching can fit for you if or when you choose to do that.
Yeah. Thanks, Sherry. And I want to say our podcasts are pretty unscripted in general, but this one's particularly unscripted.
Yes, particularly.
We changed the topic. We changed the topic at the last minute. And that's okay. That happens sometimes. But yeah, let's talk about group coaching. Let's talk about, first of all, Sherry, like, why group coaching at all? Like, what's the deal with group coaching, right? Like, I'm gonna ask you first, then I'll share what I think. But why group coach? As a coach, like, we're talking to coaches here, right?
Yeah. I think there are two themes that I hear often. And they also play an impact in my own kind of journey in group coaching, which we'll unpack here in a little bit, both of what we've done, just to give you a perspective. But two things for me. One is coaches typically want to have an impact. Like a really good coach, the coaches that we surround ourselves with here at the Coach's Journey podcast and in the Coaching Mastery community are coaches that aspire to have a big impact, like a lot of them are like, I want to reach like the world, like people all over, not just in a narrow geographical location. And so groups offer an opportunity for a single voice to have a bigger impact. And that's part of what I love about group coaching is I can have an hour of conversation and coaching and reach more than just one person. So there's like a megaphone type perspective. The other thing, which is related, is on the financial side, that with group coaching, I think there is much more of a limitless opportunity for finances because groups can be huge. And now there's a whole skill set to coaching a small group versus a big group. And I don't know that we're not going to deep dive into that today. Because that's multiple podcasts, just for that. But being able to scale financially is so much easier with group coaching. So those are the two things that come to my mind and that play into my own decision for group coaching. How about for you, Daniel?
I love that, Sherry. I totally agree that you can have a different impact is both wider. Like, you have I would say a wider impact, and even sometimes a greater impact depending on how your clients are interacting with your group. So impact, there's lots of like dimensions of impact that shift when you go to a group, right?
Yeah.
But also along with like the limitless possibilities of financing, there's also like an efficiency factor in terms of like both, like, if you're thinking about one-on-one clients, you have your one-on-one clients, but you can only have so many of them, right? So like I would say time and efficiency is part of one of the reasons. It's part of the reason that people go to group coaching, right? It's like, I have space for 10 clients a week in my calendar. Okay, that's the most clients I can take. So the only way to increase my impact is to either shorten those sessions and add more, or bring people into the same session, just physically the amount of time we have. So like you can actually reach more impact through time and efficiency that way. But also there's a different price point that you could apply to group coaching. And you could argue whether group is more valuable or less valuable than one-on-one. In some contexts, the one-on-one will be the most valuable. In some contexts, actually, it's the group that is most valuable. It depends on how you set up your group and what you're working on, and whether people need really close support individually or whether the group support is more powerful. It depends on, what your group would be about or what your coaching is about. But ultimately, typically, I would say the more in-depth attention commands a higher price point, but not always. I will say not always. But so you can have a different price points. So more people can afford your coaching. So for example, if you're charging, I'm just going to make up numbers here. If you're charging $10,000 for one-on-one and for the same length of time, maybe same topic, you could charge less for the group. And let's say you're charging $2,000 or $3,000 for the group. Now you can have 4 people in there and you deliver it at the same time to make the same amount of money. And part of it is sustainability for the coach. It's not just about money, it's about time, it's about sustainability. Like, now I can impact more people through the same or less time than I was doing before, right? For the same amount of money, so I can continue to do it.
It also works as part of the value ladder, which is one term given to, like, if you look at all the things that you have to offer as a coach, you have low ticket or maybe free stuff, like maybe you do a workshop, a webinar that's free, and then you have your high ticket, which is maybe your individual coaching or consulting or kind of whatever this, but then what's in the middle? And this is an opportunity where you can serve people at a lower price point, and that could be a lead gen for you then to serve them at a higher level, at a higher price. So there's also a function for it there as well.
Yeah, and there's another bet that reminds me. There's a couple of things that we're talking about why it's good for coaches too. I want to also say, like, it's also good for members a lot of the time. And if we have a community, right? We have a community where we engage in group activities together. Some of it's group coaching, some of it's teaching, some of it's masterminding, but all that I consider part of group coaching. Like oh my God, we could do so many podcasts. We should do more podcasts on this. But if you think about like the benefits to your community, to your members, you have community and connection. Mm-hmm. Having connection in a group is a really powerful source of not just accountability for sure, but also of like encouragement and support. Like when you have a group, people come to a group together, they hear what other people are doing, the multiple perspectives that you get and the interactions you can create in a group. If you're not creating interactions in your group, you should create some interactions, because otherwise we could just watch the recording and nobody watches recordings anyway. So if you can create interactions in your group, you can create this very different experience of perspectives being shared, and perspectives that the coach wouldn't share. So you can get a lot of I would say different kinds of value, right?
Yes, and it's not all dependent on you as the coach, which is the beauty of it.
Yes.
So they're getting value from other people in the group, which means that it's not all on you, which it can be a breath of fresh air. Now, obviously, there's a lot of work that goes into building a culture.
Sounds simple.
It sounds simple, but it's not. And at the same time, once you get it going, there is an incredible amount of stickiness. I would say like the retention or the re-upping to staying in the community and continuing to be in your kind of ecosphere of coaching influence is likely going to be a lot higher if you have a well-run group than if you're just doing individual coaching. Yeah. Daniel, anything else you wanted to add before we kind of shift?
There's so much.
I know.
We can pause. There's so much more. Okay. I will add one last point. Yes, you have the whole group, so you don't have to be the only one who brings the answers. You don't have to know everything to do your group. In fact, a lot of the times, just like in one-on-one coaching, your clients already somehow know the answers inside. It depends. If your group is about coaching, you can bring that out from the member who you're talking to or who's speaking, or from the whole group can help. There's lots of techniques and tools to do it, but it takes some experience to learn how to do that naturally and well. But just like in one-on-one, it's like, well, I'm not going to tell you the answer. What do you think? You can do similar things with group. It's a little different, but it's similar, right? So you can bring the wisdom out from whoever is assembled. You don't have to be the one with the answers, just like in one-on-one.
Yeah.
And if you're doing some consulting type work, then maybe sometimes you have answers, but that's not the point, right? You bringing groups together allows you to still do the things you do in one-on-one. It's just there's a geometric scaling of that, and so it makes you a better leader because you have to learn how to not just coach but facilitate the group. That's the thing. It takes a lot more energy, but the rewards of you and your communications, your ability to communicate in a group is so valuable.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Okay. So yes, I also could add to that, but I'm going to pause that. And Daniel, I would love to hear if you could share with our listeners, what is your journey of group coaching? What does it look like? Like maybe answer two things, like how did you pivot into group coaching? And what has that looked like since you've been doing it?
Mm. That's interesting. I have to think about it because there's like a couple of things that went into the pivot. When I traveled, what did I do my first group? Oh, so the first thing that happened is when I was working at General Motors in corporate, I went to this leadership training. We had like a big culture change across the company. Like, it was workshops for all the executives, and I went to one of the early ones as a leader in General Motors, and it was a really good workshop. It was like a great workshop where we talked about like what's the culture today, what do we want it to be. And then I, really had some good interactions with the instructors in the class, and they actually tapped me on the shoulder, said, "Hey, we would like you to maybe consider helping us train the other executives in this." And I said, "What do you mean?" Like they said, like, "Oh, we really like the things you had to say. Clearly, you take leadership seriously, and we want you to help us train the executives across the company." I'm like, "That's awesome!" So said yes right away without thinking that it would take time and effort. And I had to take days off to do that. And that created other challenges in my work, but navigating that was fine. But I started facilitating these classes for executives. I don't even think you know the story, Sher.
I
I started
don't.
facilitating these classes for executives, and it would be the day-long workshop. We go downtown to the Renaissance Center in Detroit, overlooking the river. And it would be this like, I get there at like 7 a.m. The class would start at like 8:30. We set up the room and the chairs, and it was like in person facilitated. And these executives would fly in from wherever to take this 1 day class. And I was like, who am I to be teaching this the first time? I'm like, there's like people are very high up in the company. Like I don't know what I'm doing, but they had a whole thing that they did, and I used my own style to improve it and to do my own version of it. And I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed it so much that when I later had quit my job and started traveling with my wife around the world, we were traveling in a group of expats, and I was, people were talking about what they did. I was like, I'm a coach and blah blah blah, and I do, high performance and this and that and the other. And they wanted me to do a workshop for them, so I did. So I did my first workshop in was it Chile? I think it was in Chile. No, yeah, we started the year in Chile. So we were in Santiago, and I got the group of expats together and in a room. We did a workshop on the board. I can't remember what it was about. It was probably about productivity or something like that. I can't remember. But people really liked it. And I got a couple clients through that workshop. And then I was there, and then the other people in the so we were at this co-work together, this group of expats, and there were other people from the local, city in the co-work too. And then one of them saw what I was doing and said, "Hey, what were you doing in there?" I was like, "Oh, I was doing a workshop for, all my friends here that are coworkers with us." And then they're like, "Oh, I'm with the, startup Chile people, and we have all sorts of entrepreneurs here, and we'd like you to do a workshop for us. If you would you do that?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure." I was just doing all these for free. Like, I didn't care. I
Yeah.
was just like, "This is fun." And also the cool thing is it positions you as a person who has credibility, who can command a room, who brings resources, information, knowledge, and support to people. And people saw that, right? And so that's why people wanted to, work with me one-on-one a little bit. So that I basically did that almost in every country we went to. I think I did in every country. Yeah, we did one in Brazil, I did two in Buenos Aires, and one in Santiago. And then one of those people connected me with the company that they were working for remotely, and then I did a workshop for their team. And so then, I kept on doing that. And then, Rob and I started a mastermind for coaches to study group coaching and to like figure out what makes group coaching really work and what are the techniques and tools and how do you really do it. And so we ran that for years, still running it actually. And we developed a lot of tools to do group coaching really well. And so that was kind of my journey. You probably didn't know some of that.
I didn't know some of that. That's fantastic.
Yeah, I never had to tell the story. And the reason that I think it came natural to me too, because I did a lot of musical performance. And that's facilitating a group. When you get on stage, you learn what to do and what not to do, especially what not to do, because you have to you have to hold everybody's energy from the audience. That's why the best performers are amazing, because they know how to hold the energy of like an entire stadium, right? I can hold the energy for about 100 people in a musical setting right now. So my goal is to go a little higher, but also in group coaching, I can do that too now. So I feel like 1,000 is my goal right now. I want to be able to command 1,000, the energy of 1,000 people, not command, but like support that energy, you know?
Yeah, I love that. And I appreciate you bringing in the perspective that you have this experience outside of coaching that you are harnessing in coaching. One of the things, aspects that I think so many coaches and just people that are entrepreneurs and that have a lot of life experience sometimes overlook is the value of all of the skills and abilities they have in these other areas of life that they don't recognize are generalizable into their coaching journey and into their coaching skills. So I love that you recognize that there's this generalizability of skills and desire in one area of life that you can bring into your coaching and vice versa.
So true, right? I want to hear your story about group coaching though, Sherry.
Yeah.
Because you
So
made a huge journey in the last few years, right?
I have made it. So my first experience in group coaching was probably in about 2015. And it wasn't group coaching, it was group therapy. And so I had a private practice. I had it for about 9 years. I was about 5 years in. We were on our fourth building because we were expanding. So we had just moved into our fourth building, which was 6,000 square feet of commercial office space. And I had this big room in the back of the building that was our group room. So I bought like 8 or 9 couches. And they lined the outside of this big room, and that was the group room. It was also our staff meeting room, but it was our group room. Also the couches, because I got them secondhand from a hotel that went out of business, they were also hide beds, which is a little weird to have beds in a therapy office, but most people never knew that there were actually mattresses
But
under
don't
the
you sometimes lie down on the couch or the bed?
yeah, that there's some ethical challenges and anyway.
Yeah, okay.
So I ran a couple therapy groups and they were miserable. And the reason they were miserable,
I didn't know that.
yeah, total miserable. I knew nothing about facilitating groups. Well, I shouldn't say nothing. I mean, I've being a business owner and running a practice.
You're a parent, you're a human, you've had experiences, right?
Yes, and I had plenty of experience running staff meetings and I did some workshops for the local mental health community and things like that. So I wasn't like I've been on stage, so it's like it wasn't entirely new. But also, I have a master's in marriage and family therapy, so I have experience in having a couple people in the room. And I know that I was always challenged by managing 2 people, especially when they were at odds with each other and they would interrupt because I'm so much like an introvert. Like I sit back and I observe and listen. So when those moments happen where I have to jump in and be like, stop it, or however that would be, like, I would not take those moments and be my best self. So I already knew I was
You're
challenged
so
in
much
that.
better at it now though, Sarah, to jump in and tell you that like you've improved in that area, because like you do that to me a lot better than you'd expect.
Thank you. So my first group was a therapy group for depression. And
Oh man, that's intense.
right? The challenge that I had back then, and I think groups have a different perspective just in general by the general public, because masterminds, from my perspective, as masterminds came on the scene handful of years ago, where they've been around longer than that, but they've really started to get traction and public awareness. The idea of group learning and the value that brings, even more, potentially even more so than an individual, as you were kind of alluding to before, that really wasn't the mindset at the time. And when you're talking with depressed people who have shame and embarrassment around their story and their journey, like trying to bring people together when I was not well versed in how to help them open up. I'm sure I did not set up the stage for safety and these things that I know now back then. I mean, it was just it was like, I think we had like 3 or 4 middle-aged ladies just sitting there kind of, it did not go well and it did not last long. So like,
Can I
that's
ask? I'm just super curious because my vision of like bringing a group of depressed people together with a unskilled facilitator, you self-described that way, so I think it's okay. Like I think they would just make each other more depressed, like almost by automatic. If you're not consciously creating
yes,
the right environment for that, they're gonna like spiral each other downwards. And without
absolutely.
some element in the group of like intention around how we're going to show up for each other
Yes.
and what the purpose and how we're gonna like that could be a disaster.
Yeah, all of that stuff I did not do because they came because they were my individual clients and they trusted me. And so like we'd be sitting in there and they'd be looking to me mostly because they're used to looking to me in the therapy session. And so I did not know how to really shift their value and attention to each other. Yeah, so it was a disaster.
Oh, what a wasted opportunity too, because when you're depressed, shifting your attention to somebody else is very helpful because now you're not so inward focused, right? When you're depressed, like, and I'm saying that from experience, right? Like I was
Yeah.
very inward focused and focused on my depression, even though I didn't call it that. But as soon as there's somebody in front of me who I need to help, and that's not universal, but that was very general, and you can tell me if that's pretty much applicable across the board in general. But maybe not 100%. But like for me, it was like, hey, there's somebody to serve in front of me that popped me out of any depression I had. It was like, oh, this person needs me right now. Let me help them. Way
Yeah.
easier, right? Than living through like a place where I'm stuck looking inwards. And that's one of the reasons we need to be connected to each other as
Yeah.
humans, because
Yeah.
we're built for connection.
Yes. So that was my first kind of real experience with group. And so I was
Yeah.
like, I'm not cut out for this. I'm not good at this. I suck. Like these are all the thoughts that went through my mind at the time. I was trying it, but I knew that I didn't have the greatest skill set to really make this work. And nor did I have the marketing savvy at the time to know how to even market it well. So really, it failed. And it was about 4 or 5 years later when I did my next group. And that group was on the other side of having sold my practice and having started as a high performance coach. And it was right after COVID started. So I was high on my certification. I was all excited. I'm like, I can change the world. And COVID hit. And I'd already done some coaching, individual coaching with some people that were in our local Chamber of Commerce. Because as soon as I got my certification, I was pitching myself to everybody. I met with the director or the president of the chamber, and I'm like, "This is what I do." And so I was able to get some traction there.
Mm.
And so I knew some of the challenges of running a chamber and different things like that. And so I launched the Wyoming. I don't even remember, entrepreneur something or other, because I live in Wyoming. So I'm like, I'm just gonna, I'm gonna make this specific to Wyoming because we know that during COVID, every state had their own like climate around COVID and rules and regulations and stuff like that. So I marketed it to all of the chamber executives. And I said, and you're welcome to invite anybody that's a member of your chamber as an entrepreneur as well. And so I ran this group for about 12 weeks with all of different chamber exec. I mean, it was free. Also, just kind of like what you did, it was free. It was an opportunity I felt to be able to get more exposure and credibility. And I really still didn't know what I was doing. And I don't even remember, like, I don't think I used the framework that I had as a high performance coach. It was a lot around supporting them in the challenges that they were experiencing, given the stresses of COVID and things like that. Um, I don't look at it. I wouldn't look at it as like a huge success because but I also don't look at it as a failure. It was, and it was one step in the progression of having courage, because it took me courage to put myself out there like that because I didn't have any really great experiences in, facilitating a group like this. And here I am like saying, hey, high-powered people and, the business, the people in the cities that the businesses look to as the leaders, like, and I'm trying to lead them. Kind of like what you said, Daniel, where like, who am I to do this? But who am I not to do it because nobody else is? So what the heck? And that's kind of the story that I hear and see a lot with coaches, is that like we step into this idea of group coaching and kind of move forward in that without feeling super duper confident. And I think that is one lesson that would be great for our listeners to take away from this, is that if you're thinking about group coaching, or maybe you already are, and you're thinking about leveling up, like whatever that looks like, whether it's reaching a new audience or a larger audience or whatever that might be, if you don't feel ready, that's okay. Because if you do feel ready, chances are you probably should have done that already. Like it's just about continuing to push our skills and abilities and our impact. And so that, and I've done other things. Right now I do mostly actually group coaching. I have I have a few individual clients, but I have about 4 or 5, I think 5 different groups that I run on a biweekly or monthly basis, and it's a lot of fun. I still would not say that I'm an expert, but I know that I know enough, because when I see other people doing group coaching, I'm like,
Ah,
oh my gosh, what are they doing? Like, I don't mean to be judgmental, but I recognize the things that they're doing that aren't helpful. But I also recognize the things I'm like, ooh, that's really good. Like, I should do that. So that's how I know that I'm solidly, for me, that I'm solidly like in the group coaching mindset now, because I start evaluating without even
yeah, and
trying.
I know you're doing that, Sherry, because sometimes you offer me tips. Like now you're catching me, because I remember like when I was sharing perspective for you to help you with your group coaching, but now you're telling me, hey, Daniel, you just did this thing. You're giving me feedback too, which, by the way, for all group coaches, it's an eternal learning journey, right? If you think you are like an amazing group coach, you would be if you also are still learning. so so the feedback you get, like, no one's perfect. You can't run a perfect session. There's
Yeah.
always opportunities or ideas or improvements that you'll make at the end of the session where you debrief it. So that's why I
Yeah.
love hearing from other people. I had lots of experience doing group coaching sessions, but I still miss things and I still mess it up and I still crash and burn sometimes. And you always recover. And the feedback that you get from people who are in your community, coaches who can help you. It's one of the reasons I love Coaching Master Community, right? Because I'm there with Sherry doing a group coaching session and she is giving me feedback like, hey, Daniel, what about this? I'm like, oh, yeah, that's so good point. And next time I'm going to do a better job of that, But that's the thing about community, right? And why you might want to consider having your own community as a group coach is so that people can lift each other up in the community. And being able to have that immediate perspective from people, that sharing, that's one of the reasons Coaching Master Community exists, because we didn't have that group when we were
Yeah.
growing up as coaches at the beginning, like a decade ago. We didn't have any kind of support for ongoing business development.
Yeah.
And by the way, you need ongoing business development to succeed as a coach, whatever form that looks like. You need professional development, you need coaching skills. And so we needed a group. So we created a group for ourselves. That's how Sherry and I got to become much closer, is because we were forming the group that we needed as coaches back in the day. And
Absolutely.
we've been building that with our community for so many years now. And so uh, that relationship that we have, Sherry, and that we have with our members is so priceless. And it's a really great connection and support to give and receive.
Absolutely. So I'm curious, Daniel, we talked a lot about some of the value of doing group coaching. You've got that wonderful list behind you. I think it would be valuable to maybe talk a little bit about why somebody might not want to jump into group coaching right now. What might be some legit reasons that it's not the best business idea at the moment? Like, what are your thoughts?
That's an interesting question. Why don't do group? Well, there's lots of reasons to do group, and there's lots of reasons not to do group. I would avoid groups. I would avoid. Well, do you mean like building a group or joining a group? Because there's two different, right?
As a coach,
As a
being
coach, building a group, right?
yes.
Um, if you're not clear on, if you don't have a general idea of the group that you're serving, it becomes harder to build a group. So one reason to wait is to get more clarity on what group you want to build or who you want to serve. If you want to serve everybody, you could build a group serving everybody. It's possible. It can be done, but it's less sticky and it's less, you have less of a shared common mission, right? Like, so one of the things that is really important in a group is that all the members of the group have something in common or some mission together, some shared aspiration that they're all working towards that is articulatable and is explicitly stated, right? So, hey, we're creating a group for health, specifically health in, exercise or something like that. That would be maybe enough of a shared aspirational mission. But if it's like, hey, we're creating a group, come and join us. It's like, why would I join that group? I don't know what they're about. Like, why do I care? We're creating a group to learn stuff. Okay, well, I can learn stuff outside the group. So there has to be a compelling reason to join the group. And that shared aspirational mission of the group is the thing that brings people together. So if you don't have something that brings people together, you may not be ready to start a group yet.
Yeah.
Now, if you don't have experience building a group, I wouldn't call that a reason to not build a group. Like, that's how you get experience by building the group, right? Is that what you're asking, Sherry? Like,
Yeah.
what reasons do you have in mind for not starting a group?
I think it boils down to one reason: opportunity cost. And the opportunity cost is going to be very different for every coach. And what, in my own experience, I have attempted to start like 7 or 8 groups over the years, and I have put a lot of time and energy into it. And
Yeah.
every single one, well, not every, 7 out of 8 of them didn't get anywhere. Either I didn't get any clients to even start the group or whatever. So there is there is an opportunity cost that I think is really necessary to weigh. The challenge is, if you have not done any groups or never started a group, you're not really going to know what that opportunity cost is going to look like. So having conversations with people that are doing groups, that have successfully got them started going, I think that's a really important part of the journey. Because
Yeah.
for example, if you're maybe a few months into to coaching, and you've got a few individual clients, you don't quite have your process down to where you have a predictable flow, you're still strapped for money, you're still super stressed out, and you're like, well, maybe I'll just do group coaching because of the reason that it's scalable and I can get more money and all this stuff. But if you don't have the process in place for the individual clients, where they're giving you a larger chunk at once, you might just be distracting yourself. And the opportunity cost is now you're going to even have less of the individual clients, but you don't have the system in place enough to actually get traction on the group yet. Because, and again, just in my experience, getting a group going is a longer play than it is for individual clients. I can get an individual client faster than I can create a well running, functional, profitable group. Again, that's just my experience. But if you have these sorts of conversations with a variety of coaches that do group coaching, you can better understand what those opportunity costs might be and how they apply to your life.
Everything you said is awesome. And I think when you start running a group, the first group you run, you don't think about how much time, effort, and money it will cost you to run this group and make it successful, and how committed are you. And so I would say another reason to not run a group is if you don't have the passion around the topic. If you like, it's hard enough to build a one-on-one coaching business. It's just as hard to build a group coaching business, or if not harder, right? And so, yeah, it's got to be harder, I think. But like, if you don't have that passion and that energy that will sustain you through the hard times, I think this is good input for a one-on-one or a group coaching practice. Like, you're going to struggle to make it succeed. You're going to struggle to keep going, and you're going to quit. So, just make sure that there's something at the core that's driving, like that there's some really strong, energetic powerhouse of passion behind, like there's something that drives you. Like, if you're really interested in this topic, it's like you're passionate about the topic, or you really care about this particular impact in the world, and you would do it even if you weren't paid. All this, you need a lot of intrinsic motivation, I think, to really succeed at a group level, not only to sustain your business side, but for you to show up in the group like you care and like you love what you're doing. That's really important. Like, you can show up, I could run a group on something I don't care about, but I would not be able to do it long-term for myself.
Yeah.
right? If somebody hired me to run a group for a topic because they needed a group coach, I could step in and fill that shoe really fast. Like somebody says like, hey, I have the group session to run and I'm not going to be there. Here's the topic. I'm like, okay, well, give me your 5 points and I'll run it for you. I could do that because I have the skill set to do it. But if I'm not interested in that topic, I'm probably not going to want to build a group around that topic long term.
Right. And I just want to speak a little bit to the time efficiency that is part of the value of doing group. Again, this is just my experience. I can't speak for everybody, but the time efficiency in group is completely blown out of the water in a negative way at the beginning. And
Yeah.
here's why. With all of my individual clients, I don't need to market to them in between sessions to remind them to show up. They show up. But in every single group that I do, there's people that don't show up. And so I've realized and learned that I have to have a pre and post marketing campaign to my own group clients to remind them, hey, this is coming up. Here's what we're talking about. Want to see you there. And there have been weeks where I haven't done that and I've had like one person show up. And so it's clear to me that this pre and post marketing strategy that I've implemented is essential. And, and maybe this is also a testament to I'm still learning group. And maybe if I was, more amazing as a group facilitator, that would be also a driver for people to come. So I'm certain, I would guess that the better I get, maybe the less marketing I need to do. But speaking to you, especially if you're kind of just in the beginning stages of group coaching, you're probably, I spend more time outside of, well, maybe not more, just at least just as much time outside of the actual group session, just making sure people actually get there than I do in the session. So that is not time efficient at the beginning. So I just want that awareness that if you're going to jump into this, really make sure that you've got a commitment in time and energy and interest, because it's going to take a bit for the flywheel to get going and for things to get established.
That's a great point. Like the time efficiency really comes in as your group matures and as you automate some of these things, as you get a team
Yes,
on board to help you. Like at the beginning, if you're doing it all yourself, it's a lot of work.
it is.
And you actually spend more time at the beginning. But that's actually a function of business too. It's
Yes.
not just that, people need to reminders to show up, which they do. It's also that any business system that you set up in the beginning is hard. You have to figure out the right process, and it evolves until you don't automate until you know what to do, because you did it enough times that you get better at it and you know what's wrong with it, or what's right with it.
Yes,
Right?
and that's
It takes time.
part of the reason why a coaching mastery community exists is because we've recognized, and even with our own experience jumping into coaching, that coaching is as much about learning how to run a business as it is about coaching. And we've recognized that so many coaches get out of their certification, like feeling like, all right, I've got a set of skills that I can use now. I'm going to rock it. And then they don't realize all of the business strategy around the coaching that they also need in order to kind of grow a functional and profitable business. So the coaching mastery community, which is the the supporting organization for this podcast, we have a whole, like, half of what we do is around helping coaches understand, build, and adopt kind of the business practices that will help sustain their business, whether it's individual coaching or whether it's you're an author, you're adding that piece, or you're doing workshops, whatever it is. So that business side is so critically important. Daniel, we are about out of time.
Yeah.
What would you like our listeners to walk away with as like the last thing they hear about group coaching?
If you're going to be a group coach and you have the passion and you want to put the time and effort to figure it out, it's going to make you a better human. If you build a group, you have to show up at a higher level. You just become a leader automatically, and then you're called to be a better facilitator, leader, and communicator. So because you're forced into that, and also a marketer and also a business person, all that, and that's one of the things I like about leading a community, also being a coach, is you're called to be better, and you're called to keep on being better, right? Because as your clients grow, you grow. Same thing with your group. So I want to say it's like, get ready for a challenging and growthful journey. How about you, Sherry?
I'm just going to take that and provide a personal example around how group coaching has made me better. So my husband and I, we have 4 teenagers. Yes, please keep us in your thoughts and prayers. And we just recently started doing a family devotion on Sunday nights around the topic of love, sex, and relationships for teenagers.
Wow.
I know.
That's a group coaching program right there. Oh my gosh.
That's exactly my point. As I'm sitting on the couch and my 4 kids are there and my husband's there. My husband is clueless. He is not a coach. He is a wonderful leader, but he hasn't had the opportunity to learn as much around, group facilitation as me. And so I'm facilitating this Bible devotional study with my kids, and I'm using my group facilitation skills and doing it. And like, it's getting me a little bit tearful. Like, knowing that I have these skills that I can change my kid's life with, that means everything to me. So there we go. We're ending the podcast
I
with
love that. I love that, Cherry.
Yeah. So
They're so lucky to have you. They're so lucky to have you. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Even though my son said, "Mom, how many times can you say sex in a sentence?" He was so embarrassed.
Yeah, well, when I was a teenager, I was really embarrassed too. I got kicked out of sex ed class because I was laughing too much. Me and the other kid, 2 of us, couldn't stop laughing because it was so taboo at home. So the fact that you're making it not taboo at home actually tells me that they're gonna be well more prepared to be able to like just face the topic, which makes them more able to make good decisions, right? So
Absolutely.
yeah,
So group
good job.
coaching can change your life in so many ways.
I love that. I would agree.
Thank you. All right. So thank you so much for giving your time, attention to this podcast episode. We value you as a listener. If you have any comments, feedbacks, would love to share how this podcast impacted you, what you love the most about it. We always value your feedback. You can reach us at so many different places on Facebook, at support@coachingmasterycommunity.com. Also, we have an amazing platform that we've shifted to on School with our Coaching Mastery community, that we would love to see you over there. And so just look up Coaching Mastery Community on School. You can join that and get a ton of value every week. And yeah, thank you so much. And we look forward to seeing you again in a week.
See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.